Reflective speech on leg circulation exercise at 100. At 100 years of age, the body becomes a quiet teacher. It does not shout the way youth shouts. It does not rush the way ambition rushes. Instead, it whispers. And if one lives long enough, one begins to understand that health is not something we conquer. It is something we listen to. When people ask me what keeps my legs alive with warmth and movement after a century of living, they expect a secret herb, a hidden therapy, or perhaps a rare medical intervention. But what I offer them instead is something smaller than expectation and larger than mystery. I tell them I practice one simple movement every day. Not because I discovered it in a laboratory. Not because a physician prescribed it with urgency. But because my body, over time, revealed its need for it. Circulation is one of the most beautiful quiet miracles inside us. Blood travels through rivers thinner than a strand of hair, guided not by thought but by rhythm. The heart is the central drummer, but it is not the only musician. Muscles participate. Nerves participate. Even the elasticity of tiny vessel walls participates in a choreography that sustains life second by second. As we age, this choreography becomes slower. Not broken, but slower. Scientists describe this as vascular stiffness. The arteries lose some of their youthful flexibility. Capillaries become less responsive. The small valves inside veins, especially those in the legs, begin to close with less precision. None of this is failure. It is simply time expressing itself through biology. Yet the body does not surrender easily. Even at 100, adaptation continues. Cells still respond to signals. Muscles still answer invitations to move. Blood still listens to direction. The exercise I practice each morning begins before I even stand up. I sit quietly at the edge of my bed and raise my heels slowly while keeping my toes resting on the floor. Then I lower them gently. I repeat this again and again with patience, not force. It is a small movement, almost invisible to someone watching from across the room. But inside the legs, something remarkable begins to happen. The calf muscles awaken. Scientists sometimes call the calf muscles the second heart of the body. I did not know this phrase when I first began this movement many years ago. I only knew that when I performed it, my feet felt warmer. Later I learned why. Each time the calf muscle contracts, it presses gently against deep veins that carry blood upward toward the heart. Because veins in the legs must move blood against gravity, they rely heavily on surrounding muscle contractions. When the muscle squeezes, it pushes blood upward. When it relaxes, valves inside the vein prevent backward flow. This is not a dramatic action. It is a subtle hydraulic assistance system built into our anatomy. Over time, I noticed something else. When I practiced this movement regularly, the heaviness in my legs disappeared. The tingling that sometimes arrived during long periods of sitting faded away. The skin of my lower legs remained warm even in colder weather. At first I believed this was coincidence. But repetition has a way of teaching truth. The body rewards consistency more than intensity. Many people believe improvement must arrive through strain. They imagine that effort must be large in order to be meaningful. Yet biology often responds more faithfully to gentle repetition than to heroic exertion. Capillaries expand gradually. Nerve pathways strengthen gradually. Even the lining of blood vessels, known as the endothelium, responds quietly to regular motion by releasing substances that support elasticity and circulation. Doctors sometimes explain circulation in terms of pressure and resistance. These are useful measurements. They help us understand how blood travels through complex branching networks. But circulation is also communication. It is information moving through fluid. Oxygen is information. Nutrients are information. Hormones are information. Even warmth itself is a message delivered by moving blood. When circulation slows in the legs, the message becomes delayed. Cells wait longer for oxygen. Waste products remain longer than they should. The tissues become quieter than they were designed to be. Movement restores conversation. The small exercise I perform each day does not appear powerful. Yet inside the body, it activates one of the most important partnerships in human physiology, the partnership between muscle and vessel. Sometimes people ask me why doctors cannot fully explain the effectiveness of such a simple habit. I tell them doctors understand much more than we think. But medicine often studies what is dramatic, measurable, and urgent. Simple daily rhythms belong to another kind of knowledge. They belong to lived physiology. Science is very good at identifying disease. It is still learning how to describe quiet wellness. When I lift my heels and lower them again, I am not only moving muscle. I am reminding my nervous system that the legs are still part of my intention. The brain maps the body continuously. Areas that are used often remain detailed in this map. Areas neglected become less represented. Gentle repeated movement keeps the neurological map alive. This matters more than most people realize. Circulation is not controlled only by the heart. It is also guided by nerves that adjust vessel diameter from moment to moment. When movement continues, these nerves remain responsive. When stillness becomes prolonged, responsiveness decreases. So the exercise becomes a conversation between muscle, nerve, and vessel. At 100 years old, conversations inside the body must be encouraged carefully. They cannot be forced. But they can be invited. Another change occurs during this simple movement that surprised me when I first learned about it. The lymphatic system begins to participate. Unlike blood circulation, the lymphatic system has no central pump. It relies almost entirely on movement. When muscles contract gently, lymph fluid travels more efficiently through its delicate channels. This helps remove metabolic waste from tissues and supports immune awareness throughout the body. I sometimes imagine this process as a quiet cleaning of small interior rooms. We often think of circulation only as blood movement. But fluid balance inside the body involves many pathways. When these pathways remain active, swelling decreases. Tissue clarity improves. Even the sensation of lightness in the legs returns. Over decades, I noticed something else that was more difficult to measure but easier to feel. The exercise changed my relationship with time. Each repetition reminded me that health is not a single event. It is a practice. It is not stored somewhere waiting to be used. It is generated daily through cooperation with the body's design. Young people sometimes believe aging happens suddenly. But aging is gradual conversation between structure and adaptation. When we participate in that conversation, aging becomes less frightening. The calf muscle exercise is not powerful because it is dramatic. It is powerful because it is dependable. Dependability creates biological trust. Cells respond to rhythm. Hormones respond to rhythm. Sleep responds to rhythm. Even emotional stability responds to rhythm. When the body experiences consistent gentle movement each day, it begins to expect circulation support. Expectations inside physiology often become realities. There is also something deeply calming about beginning the day with movement that is intentional rather than urgent. I do not rush the exercise. I breathe naturally while performing it. Sometimes I close my eyes. Sometimes I simply observe the sensation of pressure and release inside my lower legs. This awareness strengthens something subtle but essential: connection. Modern life encourages us to ignore the body until discomfort appears. But connection allows us to respond earlier than discomfort. Early response is one of the most powerful forms of prevention. As the years passed, neighbors began asking why my walking remained steady while many others my age experienced increasing difficulty. I could not claim certainty. No single habit explains a long life. But I knew the exercise contributed something meaningful. Walking itself depends heavily on circulation. Muscles require oxygen. Joints require nourishment. Nerves require stable communication. When circulation improves even slightly, walking confidence improves. Confidence changes posture. Posture changes breathing. Breathing changes energy distribution throughout the body. So a small movement at the feet begins influencing systems far above the ankles. Scientists describe something called endothelial responsiveness. It refers to the ability of blood vessel linings to adjust diameter in response to signals. Regular gentle muscle activity encourages this responsiveness. When vessels remain responsive, circulation adapts more efficiently to changing conditions such as temperature shifts or activity levels. I did not know this language when I began the exercise. But I experienced its results. Warm feet in winter. Less stiffness after sitting. More stable balance while standing. These observations became evidence inside my own life. Evidence does not always require instruments. Sometimes it requires attention. One morning many years ago, I forgot to perform the movement. It was a busy day filled with visitors and conversation. By evening, I noticed heaviness in my lower legs that I had not felt in a long time. That evening reminded me that the body remembers both action and absence. Since then, I have rarely skipped a day. Consistency is not discipline alone. It is friendship with the body. Doctors often recommend walking for circulation, and they are correct. Walking remains one of the most complete circulatory supports available to us. But there are moments when walking is not possible. There are mornings when joints feel uncertain. There are evenings when energy is limited. During those times, small movements become especially valuable. The heel lifting motion requires almost no space. It requires no equipment. It requires only willingness to participate. Participation is the beginning of recovery. Many people believe circulation problems arrive only in advanced age. Yet circulation begins adapting long before symptoms appear. Sitting for long periods, reduced activity, stress, and shallow breathing all influence vascular behavior gradually. Gentle movement interrupts that pattern. Every contraction of the calf muscle (PR). When I speak about the calf muscles as the body's second heart, I am not using poetry alone. I am describing a quiet anatomical partnership that most people live with every day without ever noticing it. Inside the lower legs there exists a remarkable system designed to support something physiologically difficult, the upward movement of blood from the feet back toward the chest through the process known as venous return. This journey must take place in constant conversation with gravity, a force that gently but persistently encourages blood to remain in the lowest parts of the body. The heart provides the primary driving pressure that sends blood outward through arteries. But returning blood from the legs is not the heart's work alone. It depends on cooperation. It depends on structure. And most beautifully, it depends on movement. Each time the calf muscles contract, even in the smallest motion such as lifting the heels slightly from the floor, they compress the deep veins running through the lower leg. These veins contain delicate one-way valves, like small doors that open only in the upward direction. When the muscle tightens, it gently presses blood through those doors. When the muscle relaxes, the doors close behind it, preventing backward flow. In this way, every contraction becomes a soft upward pulse. Not dramatic. Not forceful. But persistent. Over the course of a single day, the number of these pulses can reach into the thousands. And over the course of years, they become millions. This is why gentle repetition matters more than sudden effort. Biology responds to rhythm more faithfully than it responds to intensity. What is especially remarkable is that this assistance happens whether we are aware of it or not. Walking, standing, shifting weight, or simply raising the heels while seated all activate the same supportive mechanism. The calf muscles do not demand attention. They simply respond when invited. And when they respond regularly, circulation begins to feel lighter, warmer, more dependable. There is also something deeply reassuring about understanding that the body has already built this supportive system within us. We are not required to invent it. We are only required to participate in it. A small contraction becomes a message to the veins. A repeated contraction becomes a pattern. And a pattern becomes protection over time. People sometimes imagine circulation as something controlled only from the chest upward. But the truth is more generous than that. The legs themselves help lift blood homeward. They share responsibility with the heart. They assist quietly, faithfully, and continuously. Red heart. So when we move the calves gently and often, we are not performing an exercise in the ordinary sense. We are activating a natural pump that has always been waiting for our cooperation. And in doing so, we restore a conversation between muscle and vessel that keeps the lower body alive with warmth, clarity, and motion. There is a quiet misunderstanding in modern health culture that improvement must arrive through intensity. Many people believe circulation changes only when the body is pushed to its limits, when effort becomes visible, measurable, and exhausting. Yet the biology of circulation tells a gentler story. The vascular system does not respond only to force. It responds to rhythm. And rhythm, when repeated daily, becomes one of the most reliable teachers the body can recognize. Inside every blood vessel lives a delicate inner lining known as the endothelium. This lining is not simply a passive surface. It is an intelligent interface between movement and chemistry. It senses the flow of blood passing across it. It listens to pressure. It responds to change. And when it receives regular signals from gentle muscular activity, it begins to adapt in ways that support smoother circulation throughout the body. What is remarkable is that the endothelium does not require dramatic effort to respond. It prefers consistency. Small daily movements, lifting the heels, shifting posture, walking short distances, or slowly contracting the calf muscles, create repeated waves of blood flow that brush along vessel walls like soft currents along a shoreline. These waves send mechanical signals that encourage the vessels to remain flexible and responsive rather than rigid and resistant. One of the most fascinating responses of the endothelium is the release of nitric oxide, a molecule so small and subtle that we cannot feel it directly, yet so influential that it helps blood vessels widen gently when needed. This widening improves circulation not through force, but through cooperation. Blood travels more easily. Oxygen arrives more efficiently. Waste leaves tissues more smoothly. The entire system begins to move with less effort. This process does not require athletic strength. It requires repetition. Each time a muscle contracts lightly, blood flow shifts slightly. Each shift becomes a message. Each message becomes a signal to the vessel walls. And over time, these signals accumulate into adaptation. The vessels become more responsive to changing conditions such as temperature, posture, or daily activity. Circulation becomes less fragile and more reliable. Consistency also protects something less visible but equally important: vascular communication with the nervous system. Blood vessels are not independent tubes. They are guided continuously by nerve signals that adjust their diameter moment by moment. When gentle movement becomes part of daily life, these signals remain active and precise. Stillness, when prolonged, slowly reduces that precision. So improvement in circulation often begins not with effort that overwhelms the body, but with movement that reassures it. There is something deeply hopeful in this understanding. It means the body is not waiting for extraordinary performance. It is waiting for participation. Small daily movements become invitations the vascular system recognizes immediately. They remind the vessels how to respond. They remind the tissues how to receive nourishment. They remind circulation that it is still welcome to move freely through every pathway it was designed to serve. Many people grow up believing that circulation is governed entirely by the heart, as though the heart alone carries responsibility for moving blood through the vast landscape of the human body. It is understandable why this belief feels natural. The heart is strong, rhythmic, and central. It is the organ we most easily associate with motion inside us. Yet when we look more carefully at how blood actually returns from the legs to the chest, we begin to see that circulation is not the work of a single organ. It is a collaboration. It is a partnership among multiple systems that quietly support one another throughout the day. The heart begins the journey, but it does not complete it alone. In the lower body especially, circulation depends heavily on muscle activity. Each time the calf muscles contract, they assist the upward movement of blood through the process known as venous return. Because the legs sit below the level of the heart for most of the day, they must work continuously with gravity rather than simply relying on pressure generated in the chest. Muscle contractions become gentle pumps that help move blood upward step by step. Even small movements can create meaningful shifts in circulation over time. Nerve signaling also plays a vital role in this process. Blood vessels are not rigid tubes. They are living structures that adjust their diameter from moment to moment under the guidance of the autonomic nervous system. This system constantly monitors posture, temperature, emotional state, and activity level. It widens vessels when tissues need more oxygen and narrows them when circulation must be redirected elsewhere. When movement becomes regular and intentional, nerve signals remain responsive and accurate, supporting smoother flow through the legs. Alongside the blood circulation system works another quieter network known as the lymphatic system. Unlike blood vessels, lymphatic vessels do not have a central pump. They rely almost entirely on muscle motion and body position to move fluid upward. When the legs remain still for long periods, lymph flow slows. But when the legs move gently and frequently, lymph begins to travel more efficiently, helping tissues remain clear, balanced, and less prone to swelling. Posture adds another layer to this cooperation. The way we sit, stand, or walk influences how easily blood returns from the lower body. Upright alignment allows vessels to remain open and unobstructed. Slumped or compressed positions can slow circulation without us realizing it. Small corrections in posture can therefore produce surprisingly meaningful changes in how circulation behaves throughout the day. Breathing, too, participates in this partnership. Deep diaphragmatic breathing influences pressure inside the chest and abdomen through the action of the diaphragm, creating gentle shifts that help guide blood upward toward the heart. Each calm breath becomes a subtle circulatory assistant, reinforcing the upward movement already supported by muscles and nerves. When we begin to see circulation in this way, something changes in how we understand the body. The legs are no longer passive structures waiting for help from above. They become active participants in their own nourishment. Muscle movement, nerve communication, lymph flow, posture, and breathing all work together like instruments in a quiet orchestra, each contributing its part to maintain warmth, balance, and vitality in the lower body. And when these systems cooperate regularly, circulation becomes not just a mechanical function, but a living expression of harmony within the body itself. Leg herb. There is something quietly powerful about raising the heels while the toes remain resting on the ground. It appears almost too simple to matter. Many people perform the movement without realizing they are activating one of the body's most effective natural support systems for circulation. Yet beneath this small motion, deep within the lower legs, a coordinated physiological response begins to unfold, one that influences both blood movement and fluid balance in ways that accumulate gently over time. When the heels lift, the calf muscles contract in a slow and controlled way. This contraction presses against deep veins that carry blood upward toward the heart through the process known as venous return. Because these veins must work against gravity, they depend heavily on muscular assistance. Each small contraction becomes a soft upward push, encouraging blood to continue its journey rather than settling in the lower limbs. Over repeated movements, this gentle pumping action helps maintain warmth, nourishment, and oxygen delivery to tissues that otherwise tend to become sluggish during long periods of sitting or standing. At the same time, something equally important begins happening alongside the veins. The lymphatic system, which does not possess a central pumping organ like the heart, responds directly to muscle movement. Heel raising creates rhythmic pressure changes in the lower legs that encourage lymph fluid to travel upward through its delicate channels. This movement helps clear excess fluid from tissues and supports the removal of metabolic byproducts that accumulate naturally throughout the day. When lymph flow improves, many people notice a gradual reduction in the sensation of heaviness that sometimes appears in the lower legs after prolonged stillness. Swelling becomes less frequent. The skin may feel more comfortable and responsive. These changes do not happen suddenly. They unfold through repetition, through patience, and through the body's remarkable ability to respond to consistent signals. Another quiet benefit of heel-raising movements is their influence on tissue oxygenation. As circulation improves, oxygen reaches cells more efficiently. Cells that receive steady oxygen supplies maintain stronger metabolic activity and clearer communication with surrounding tissues. This reduces the likelihood of what might be described as tissue stagnation, a condition in which fluids move slowly and cellular exchange becomes less efficient. When movement restores circulation, tissues regain a sense of liveliness that is often felt before it is measured. There is also a subtle neurological contribution to this process. Gentle repeated motion reminds the nervous system that the lower legs remain active participants in daily movement. Nerves that regulate vessel diameter continue responding with precision, helping circulation adjust naturally to posture changes, temperature shifts, and activity levels. What makes heel raising especially meaningful is not its complexity, but its accessibility. It can be performed while standing, sitting, or even during moments of quiet rest. It requires no equipment, no special environment, and no dramatic effort. Instead, it invites cooperation between muscle and vessel, between fluid and structure, between awareness and habit. Over time, these small rhythmic contractions become more than a simple exercise. They become a reliable way of supporting the body's natural drainage pathways and circulatory rhythms. And through this cooperation, the legs begin to feel lighter, clearer, and more capable of sustaining movement across the many hours of an ordinary day. Leg droplet. There is a quiet shift that occurs when a person begins to move each day with intention, even in very small ways. Circulation, which is often imagined as something automatic and distant from our influence, gradually becomes something we participate in rather than something that simply happens to us. This shift is subtle at first. It begins with awareness. And over time, awareness becomes habit, and habit becomes support for the body's most essential rhythms. Many people think of circulation as a background function controlled entirely by the heart. While the heart plays a central role, circulation is also shaped continuously by movement, posture, breathing, and attention. When small restorative movements become part of daily life, such as lifting the heels, flexing the ankles, walking short distances, or simply shifting weight with intention, they begin to influence the process known as venous return. These movements help guide blood upward from the lower body and prevent it from remaining still for longer than necessary. The transformation begins when movement is no longer accidental. Instead of waiting for discomfort to signal the need for activity, a person begins to move before heaviness appears, before stiffness develops, before circulation slows. In this way, movement becomes preventive rather than reactive. It becomes a daily conversation with the body rather than an emergency response to symptoms. Habit plays an especially powerful role in this process. The body responds strongly to repetition. When small movements occur at regular times each day, muscles begin to expect them. Blood vessels begin to respond more efficiently to them. Even the endothelium, the delicate cellular layer inside each vessel, adjusts its behavior in response to steady patterns of flow. Over time, this responsiveness supports smoother circulation and more adaptable vascular function. Awareness strengthens this effect even further. When movement is performed with attention rather than distraction, the nervous system becomes more actively involved. Signals traveling through the autonomic nervous system help coordinate vessel diameter, heart rhythm, and muscular readiness in ways that support efficient circulation throughout the legs and the rest of the body. This coordination does not require strain. It requires presence. Breathing also joins this partnership when movement becomes intentional. Gentle engagement of the diaphragm during calm, steady breathing changes pressure inside the chest and abdomen, subtly assisting the upward movement of blood and lymphatic fluid. In this way, even quiet breathing becomes part of the circulatory system's support structure. What begins as a simple daily action gradually becomes something larger. Movement stops being an occasional effort and becomes a dependable rhythm. Circulation stops being something we worry about only when symptoms appear and becomes something we help maintain each day through cooperation. The body responds to this cooperation with warmth, stability, and clarity in the lower limbs. Over time, these small restorative movements reshape how a person experiences their own physiology. Instead of feeling passive in relation to circulation, they begin to feel connected to it. They recognize that health is not only something received from within the body's automatic systems, but something strengthened through steady partnership with them. And in that partnership, even the simplest movement becomes meaningful support for the quiet pathways that keep life flowing. Leg.